Hey everyone, long time no see. It's Katie G and Elisa D with Let's Get Therapy. As you know, Elisa has an advanced degree in psychotherapy, specializing in trauma, PTSD, and addiction. And obviously the world around us is going crazy. And Lisa, we have some tips and inner thoughts to try to display today.
Absolutely. The world is in such chaos, like you said, and we want to be able to talk about how to know what we're in control of and what we're not in control of. And why does that even matter? Why is that an important topic to talk about? So we just want to kind of have a dialogue today and just open up the discussion around how do we get through all of this chaos?
Right. And so many things are just simply out of our hands at this time. I mean, not to go there, but the election and all the things going on politically. And then, of course, here we are in another lockdown.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that we can do about it.
It feels so overwhelming. It feels overwhelming to everyone. It feels overwhelming to kids. It feels overwhelming to elderly people. It feels overwhelming to people who are trying to go to work and do work, the essential workers. It's heavy. We're America, the world in general, but America, because that's where we're at. It's burdensome. So we want to read to you the Serenity Prayer. This is something that I turn to regularly because it is a prayer that we use in the addiction world, and it's something that most people in AA and NA will become very familiar with, because in addiction, it's something that you have to turn over on a regular basis. You have to surrender that addiction that you have to something bigger than yourself. And so let us just read this to you, and you guys we're going to talk about it.
So we have the Serenity Prayer. Many of you, like Lisa said, have heard this. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
First thoughts.
Well, I think so this is something that I have been hearing my entire life. It's actually a tattoo that I have on my shoulder. My mom brought this up because growing up, there were a lot of things that were out of my control that I would let emotionally and physically disable me for the time being. I mean, oh my gosh, so-and-so's mad at me for something that I didn't do.
Yeah.
What can I do about that in that exact moment in time? Nothing. Right. And so that prayer has been something that both my parents have used with me growing up, just to kind of be like, Kate, you need to sit down, pan this out, and realize there are things that you simply can't do anything about.
That's right. And that is basically the world we're living in right now. Again, we thank Katie's parents for being such fantastic parents. They knew what she needed. They knew that she needed to understand what is the difference between what we can control and what's the difference between what we can't control. So I'm going to pull it up one more time just so we can take a look at it while we're talking. And there we go. So, I know this says God, and we might have people on this show who don't necessarily agree with the word God. But if you can just take the word God and replace it with something bigger than myself, right? It doesn't have to be God, but it is having faith in something bigger than yourself. It's relieving. Right. Because if we were in control, or if everything was up to us as humans, that is such a heavy burden. And it's not a burden that we can take on without having some sort of anxiety or some sort of depression or some sort of imposter syndrome, because we are not meant to carry everything on our own. We're meant to do it as a community. We're meant to do it with something that is bigger than ourselves. It's too heavy. It just is.
It's heavy. And also what I love about this prayer is that it reminds you of exactly that. There are things that are out of your control, but then it kind of comes around and gives you a kick in the butt and go, but if there is something that can be done about it, have the courage to do that. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. This is like a really good full round prayer that you can, and again, like Elisa said, if God isn't your thing, replace it. make this prayer for you in a way that it works for you.
That's right. And so grant me the serenity. Let's talk about that. Serenity. What does that mean? Serenity, in my mind, it's peace. Grant me the ability to be serene and peaceful in my acceptance of the things that I cannot change. I don't want to be obstinate to things that I can't change. We've talked about that before. We've talked about radical acceptance. We did that a few weeks ago. And the idea of not fighting reality because it increases suffering.
Right.
And so to me, that word serenity says, don't increase your suffering. Do this with grace. Do this with peace. Accept that there are things in this world, people in this world that you will not and cannot change. And that's okay.
Yeah. And that's a really big part of being able to let go of something, you know, that you're struggling with and make peace with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And a lot of people struggle with that because when you think about things that are, I mean, well, at least shout out to all my other control freaks out there. Because when I don't have something in my grasp where I can actually take control of it, it drives me nuts. Mm-hmm. So it's something that's really hard and takes practice.
That's right. Yeah, it does take a lot of practice. And so I think this is where I really like the word discernment. So it's not a word that's used very often. It's, we use things like I need to understand, or I need to have wiser decision-making skills. But the word discernment, it kind of encompasses all that. And discernment is, how do I discern the difference between things? How do I discern? How do I know what's right and wrong? And so I feel like walking through this world, walking through this life, our discernment skills need to be honed in on. They need to be sharpened because there's so much information. There's so many different ideas and beliefs just coming at us on a regular basis that we have to sharpen our discernment skills. If we don't, then we don't even know what we stand for. We don't know who we are, and we definitely don't know what we can change and what we can't change. We need to be discerning and not just accept all the things that are thrown at us on a daily basis.
Yeah, and that goes back to another thing that we talked about when you mentioned core beliefs and kind of knowing who you are.
Yes.
It all comes back to that. And the other thing about this prayer, sorry, I keep going back to it, but I'm looking at it. The wisdom to know the difference between the two, that's a whole other category of practice, and actually being able to sit down and decide, okay, is this something that I can do something about, or is this something that I'll be better off within myself if I just kind of stay out of it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And will me trying to change things be harmful to the people around me? Will be harmful to myself? So really using your discernment skills to weigh those things out. Will this cause harm? Or will it actually promote safety? Will it promote growth? Will it promote health? And really knowing what does that look like? And I think that brings up something else, is knowing what's safe and what's not safe. And if you're unsure of what safety looks like, and when I say safety, I don't mean physically safe. I guess that is a piece of safety, of course, but I mean emotional safety. What is going to promote emotional safety? And if you've had a tough childhood, or if things have there's been a lot of challenges in your life, you might not know what emotional safety is. So I would encourage you to bounce ideas and things off of people that you do trust and know are emotionally safe, because you can't make those decisions. You can't know what you can change and what you can't change if you don't know what safety is. Right.
It's so weird how all of these things come back to something even bigger.
Right.
Who thought decision making would be so difficult? Come on now.
But you know what, Katie? If it was easy, I think we'd have like a perfect world, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And we're far from that right now. I think
we are so far from it. So
that was one other thing, Elisa, that just to go along with having your tools sharpened for yourself. There are so many more avenues now that people are getting, differing opinions thrown at them. I mean, I was telling you before we came on the air, I went into a store yesterday and I was buying a jacket. And somehow the owner of the store ended up talking politics with me, and we are not on the same side of the spectrum, which is totally fine. No worries. But in that exact moment, that wasn't what I signed up for. You know, and this is happening with the internet, with people just being more outspoken because they're more upset now than they have been in a long time.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of stuff coming at us, and this is a really important tool to save ourselves.
That's right. Absolutely. And so for that gentleman that brought up politics, that actually, if you weren't so sure of your own beliefs, that can cause harm.
Yeah, right.
It's not the right, first of all, political climate to even bring up politics with somebody you don't know. That's real risky. But
number one.
So there was no wisdom behind that. And so, you know, I would just encourage all of our listeners to go back to that serenity prayer and find out, what does it mean to you? And it's a great mantra to just have in the back of your head at all times.
Yeah.
What can I control? What can't I control? Help me know the difference. And if it's not God that helps you know the difference, maybe it's a friend that helps you knows the difference. Or maybe you get into wise mind. I think we've talked about wise mind, and figure out what feels peaceful to you in what you can control and what you can't control. That peace alone will bring you a lot of answers. So
yeah, and that peace looks different for everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And if you're watching this, we had the prayer up earlier on. We will make sure that we post the prayer in the description of the video and also in the comments so you can read it. Again, speaking of comments, we are on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. You can find all of our episodes plus our